If you love dark, slow-burn single-dad romances built on restraint, proximity, and the kind of desire that grows unbearable when two lonely people are forced too close for too long, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. Tonight's story is The Single Dad Met Her on a Business Trip. One hotel elevator changed everything. Ethan Cole hadn't planned on noticing her. He was 39, tired and away, sleep never fixed, standing in the polished marble lobby of a downtown hotel with a briefcase in one hand and his phone in the other, skimming an email he'd already read twice. The trip was supposed to be simple. 2 days of meetings, one presentation, then back home to the quiet house he'd learned how to exist inside without expecting anything more. Business trips were easier that way. Temporary. Anonymous. The elevator doors slid open. She stepped in just before they closed. Ethan looked up without thinking, and forgot what he was about to do. She was white, early 30s, dressed professionally but softly, like she'd chosen comfort over armor. A fitted blazer, loose hair falling just past her shoulders, a faint trace of perfume that wasn't aggressive but lingered anyway. She pressed the button for the same floor as him. Neither of them spoke. The elevator moved. The silence wasn't awkward. It was charged. Ethan felt it immediately. That subtle shift in the air when awareness sharpens. The kind that made him painfully conscious of his posture, the distance between their shoulders, the quiet hum of machinery beneath his feet. She glanced at him. Not openly. Not flirtatiously. Curious. Then the elevator jolted. Just enough to be noticed. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. The car slowed. Stopped. A soft chime echoed, followed by silence. Ethan felt the pause before panic set in. She didn't gasp. Didn't reach for the emergency button right away. She simply exhaled, slow and controlled, like someone who had learned not to react before assessing. That didn't sound intentional, she said. Her voice was calm. Warm. No, Ethan replied. It didn't. He pressed the help button. A recorded voice answered, promising assistance shortly. They were stuck. She leaned lightly against the wall, crossing her arms, not defensively, just comfortably. Ethan noticed the way she grounded herself, the way her weight shifted slightly to one hip. He told himself to stop noticing. Business trip? She asked. He nodded. Unfortunately. She smiled faintly. Same. Another pause. I'm Claire, she said. Ethan. They stood there as minutes stretched, the elevator unmoving, the hum beneath them steady and low. The confined space made everything feel closer. Her presence, her warmth, the way her gaze held his just a second longer than necessary. Ethan felt something stir in him that had been quiet for years. And it unsettled him. The elevator started again after 12 minutes. Just long enough to matter. They exited on the same floor, walked down the same hallway, stopped at rooms 3 doors apart. Claire hesitated at her door. Well, at least we survived. Ethan smiled, genuine and unexpected. Barely. She studied him for a moment. Good luck with your meetings. You too. She went inside. Ethan stood in his room afterward longer than he needed to, briefcase untouched, jacket still on, staring at the closed door across the hall like it had unsettled something he hadn't realized was dormant. They ran into each other again at the hotel bar that night. Ethan had planned on one drink, something to mark the end of the day before retreating to his room. He was halfway through it when she took the seat 2 stools away. Coincidence? Probably. She ordered wine. Red. Unhurried. Still operational? She asked, nodding toward the elevators. So far. She smiled again. Not wide. Not inviting. But real. They talked. Not about work at first. About travel. About how hotels all blurred together after a while. About the strange intimacy of being surrounded by people you'd never see again. Ethan didn't tell her about his past right away. He didn't tell her he'd been a single dad once. That his daughter had died. That the quiet he returned to every night wasn't peace. It was absence. Claire didn't pry. That made him want to tell her anyway. The bar grew louder. The space between them closed without either of them noticing. Her knee brushed his once beneath the counter. Neither apologized. You seem like someone who doesn't stay long anywhere, she said softly. He took a sip of his drink. I don't. By choice. He met her gaze. At first, she nodded like she understood. That was the dangerous part. The second elevator incident happened just after midnight. They were both returning to their rooms. Both quiet now. Both aware of how thin the space between them had become. The doors closed. The car descended. Then stopped again. This time, neither of them laughed. The lights dimmed, then stabilized at a lower glow. Claire exhaled slowly. Okay. Now I'm annoyed. Ethan stepped closer. Not touching, just present. We're fine. I know, she said. I just don't love enclosed spaces when I'm tired. He nodded. Me neither. The silence pressed in heavier now. More intimate. Claire leaned back against the wall, eyes closed briefly. When she opened them, she was looking at him, not searching, not testing. Deciding. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. Are you always this careful with people? The question landed directly in his chest. I wasn't, he admitted. Once. She didn't ask for more. Instead, she stepped closer. Not enough to touch. Enough to feel. If you want me to move away, she said, say so. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't move. The elevator shuddered back to life seconds later, the moment snapping without resolution. The doors opened on their floor. They walked out together. This time, Claire didn't go to her room right away. Neither did Ethan. They sat on the carpeted floor between their doors. Shoes off. Backs against the wall. The hallway was quiet. Dim. This is a terrible idea, Ethan said. Claire's lips curved. I know. Neither of them moved to stand. He told her then about his daughter. About the loss. About how being a single dad didn't end when she died. It just became something he carried without direction. Claire listened. Eyes soft. Hands resting loosely in her lap. I don't need saving, she said when he finished. But I don't run from people who feel real either. He reached out before he thought better of it. His fingers brushed her wrist. She inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. The kiss was slow. Careful. Exploratory. It wasn't hunger. It was recognition. When they parted, Claire rested her forehead against his shoulder, grounding herself in him like she'd known how all along. They didn't go into either room that night. They sat until exhaustion forced distance. The next day was unbearable. Meetings dragged. Phones buzzed. Emails piled up. All Ethan could think about was the way Claire's hand had felt in his. The way restraint had made everything sharper, more dangerous. They didn't text. They didn't plan. They met again in the elevator that evening. This time, when the doors closed, neither pretended it was accidental. You're leaving tomorrow, Claire said. So are you. She nodded. I don't want this to be something that disappears. Ethan swallowed. Neither do I. The elevator didn't stop. But something else did. They went into her room. The intimacy was deliberate. Slow. Built on consent and tension rather than urgency. Touch without urgency. Heat without desperation. When they lay together afterward, Claire traced the line of his jaw. You still think you don't stay anywhere, she said. Ethan closed his eyes. I think I just found a reason to try. They parted the next morning. No promises. No declarations. Just exchanged numbers and a look that said this wasn't finished. Months later, Ethan would realize something quietly monumental. That night in the elevator hadn't changed his life because of what happened afterward. It changed it because he finally let someone see him fully, honestly, without retreat. And this time he didn't disappear. The hours after that night feel suspended in a way Ethan hasn't experienced in years. Morning arrives quietly, filtered through sheer curtains and the distant hum of traffic far below. Ethan wakes before Claire, his body already alert, instinctively careful. For a moment, panic flickers. Muscle memory reminding him that closeness has always come with consequences. Then he feels her breathing. Steady. Warm. Unafraid. Claire lies curled against his side, one hand resting lightly on his chest as if it belongs there. The intimacy isn't sexual anymore. It's something more dangerous. Familiarity. Ease. The kind that rewires expectations without permission. Ethan stays still, letting the moment exist. When Claire wakes, she doesn't pull away. She opens her eyes slowly, looks up at him, and smiles like the night before wasn't a dream she's already filing away to survive later. "Good morning," she murmurs. He exhales. "Morning." They don't rush. They talk softly, voices low, like anything louder might fracture the fragile bubble they're in. Claire tells him about her work, how travel keeps her moving because standing still once felt like suffocation. Ethan tells her about his house back home, the quiet, the way he keeps rooms untouched because changing them feels like admitting something ended. "You don't talk like someone who gave up," Claire says gently. He hesitates. "I talk like someone who learned how to endure." She studies him for a long moment. Those aren't the same thing. The truth of it sits heavy between them. They separate late morning. Meetings pull them apart again, but something has shifted. Every elevator ride feels charged now. Every hallway echoes with memory. When they pass each other briefly near the conference rooms, their fingers brush, intentional this time. No words, just promise. That evening they walk the city together. No destination, just movement. Streetlights blur into gold as night settles. Claire slips her arm through his without asking. Ethan doesn't tense, doesn't calculate. He lets himself be seen like this, connected, choosing presence instead of control. "You're different tonight," she says. "So are you." She smiles. "I think we both stopped pretending this was temporary." The confession feels like a line crossed willingly. They stop at a quiet rooftop bar. The city spread beneath them like something alive and breathing. They sit close, thighs touching, shoulders aligned. Conversation turns softer, more personal. Ethan finally tells her everything. About becoming a single dad too young. About the fear of loving someone so completely that losing them reshaped the world. About how he learned to leave first because staying hurt more. Claire listens without interruption, her hand resting on his knee. Not grounding him, just reminding him she's there. "You didn't stop being capable of love," she says. "You just stopped trusting it." He swallows hard. "Maybe," he admits. "Or maybe I didn't want to risk finding out I was wrong." Claire leans in then, her mouth near his ear. Her voice barely above the night wind. "You don't have to decide everything right now." The intimacy of it, her closeness, her certainty without pressure, undoes him more than desire ever could. They return to the hotel slowly. This time they don't hesitate at the doors. They choose each other again, not urgently but deliberately. Touch is unhurried, exploratory, built on awareness rather than need. Every kiss lingers. Every breath is shared. Later, wrapped in quiet and sheets, Claire traces slow patterns across his chest. "You know," she says, "people like us don't collide by accident." Ethan looks at her, really looks. "Then what do you think this is?" She meets his gaze steadily. "A beginning you're allowed to want." The words stay with him. The next morning, departure looms. Suitcases line the hallway. Schedules return. Reality presses in. They stand in the lobby one last time. Fingers intertwined. Neither pretending this is casual anymore. "This doesn't have to end when the trip does," Claire says softly. Ethan nods. "I don't want it to." They part with a kiss that isn't desperate or dramatic, just certain. Months later, Ethan will ride an elevator again. Alone this time. And he'll realize something profound. That night didn't change his life because it trapped him. Changed it because for the first time he chose to stay.